The knives are out for everyone. Everyone is paranoid about everyone else. And in the end, most paranoid about Donald Trump. Do I have his favor? Do I not have his favor? What is he thinking? All of these people are asking at any given moment, what's in Trump's head?
Michael Wolff, we are not in a podcast shutdown.
I'm trying to imagine a world in which all of the podcasts shut down. There would be a silence over the planet.
Would the silence be like the silence that the generals had listening to Pete Hegseth?
I think that was its own particular unique silence, a silence of skepticism, horror, and revulsion.
I really want us to unpack that speech. When we recorded on Tuesday, we didn't have time to understand the true nature of it, but I think we've both listened to it in full now, and I really want to discuss the bit where he slurps his coffee and make it, such a bizarre moment. But first, I think we have to remind people where we are going. I have my waterproof galoshes, and I've sprayed myself with insecticide. What have you done to prepare for our journey?
And you're going to spelunk.
I'm not going to spelunk today, actually. I thought I might abseil. Where are we going, though? I think it's worth reminding new people to our podcast, and indeed our familiar audience who we love.
We are going inside Trump's head, and once again, I'll make the point that this is where everyone should go, but people don't. They really assume that Trump is a normal politician, and you look at him and you can follow he should be judged on his actions and his policies, which is absolutely not the way to understand this man. And if you do it that way, you won't get it. And what you have to understand is that he is motivated by a whole range of things that have never, ever entered the political sphere.
Well, angels and others may fear to tread there, but we are fully geared up for our twice weekly journey inside Donald Trump's head. Well, we should talk about Trump derangement syndrome, which we've both been accused of having by Stephen Chang, the White House press spokesperson. But you, as someone who's spent, as you say, 10 years studying this man, you appear relatively normal.
I don't know. I can barely remember what I was like before Donald Trump. And more, and which is a dangerous thing, none of us in this country can remember what we were like before Donald Trump, which is a kind of trauma.
And I do think you made a very good point last week, and I keep hearing this point from people, which is this what an autocracy feels like? Because I go out, I order my cappuccino, I get my cookie, I walk along the streets, everybody's out running, jogging, friends call and say they're on a GLP-1. Life seems very normal, and yet politically we know it's anything but.
I think it really depends upon who you are. If you're an immigrant, if you're a government worker, all government workers now, but think of the hundreds of thousands of government workers who have lost their jobs. Before this, if you're an administrator at any number of universities, you can go down the ever-growing list of people who have been directly affected by this. But that still leaves most of the country, which has not been directly affected. And so they kind of wait, I suppose. I think, is this going to happen to me? What is going to happen?
Well, and you see a lot of people running companies that are wanting to do M&A, or they're wanting to do something and they're terrified of putting their head above the radar in case they trigger someone in government.
Totally. If you are a person, an executive in a media company at this point, this is going to be Donald Trump, and his reaction is going to be, I don't know, the third, fourth, fifth thing you think of, maybe the first thing you think of. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel, ABC, or the Disney Corporation, which owns ABC, at the least sign that the administration was taking an issue with Jimmy Kimmel, they folded. And then conversely, as soon as the pushback came, they folded again. So this is all going on in reaction to Donald Trump.
So, what are you hearing from the White House about how Donald Trump is approaching the shutdown?
He's been going around and saying, we've got to win the shutdown. So he has immediately turned it into a Trump-style conflict. Win or lose, who's going to come out on top, who is going to appear to be the dominant guy, who's the alpha in this shutdown room, Chuck Schumer or Donald Trump, which is a kind of scary idea if you're a Democrat.
Go on, because you were saying that you felt that this was not the right moment for Chuck Schumer, that he's an administrator, he's a backroom guy, he likes to sort of do negotiations and get things done. And as you're always pointing out, Trump relishes conflict, wants nothing more than a bare knuckle fight. And now he's got
Yeah,
one.
I think you've put it well. You don't need me then to say that. That is in sum the situation. Trump is the fighter, is the pugilist. He doesn't really care. It is just about the battle. Chuck Schumer has not, after a lifetime in politics, is a politician, is a political figure. He's not a fighter. He's a negotiator. He's a backroom deal doer, which he may yet do. And he, in his own mind, I think, is probably confused about what his role here is. And on one hand, he sees, okay, I got to get the best possible deal I can. But on the other side, his role is just to stand up to Donald Trump. What is the problem with the Democratic Party? And it has nothing but problems. But a central problem is that the nation believes it's weak. That in a moment of who is the dominant personality, of where it's just about the power equation, for better or worse. But that's the moment the Democratic Party has consistently failed to show up.
Would it be fair to say it feels like there is a sense of inevitability that Trump may win this one?
There's always a sense that Trump probably has the advantage because he comes to battle just to battle.
Right, right.
And has an enormous capacity not to fold when other people would fold. Again, think of 4 criminal indictments, and he just powered through.
Endless bankruptcies. This is his modus operandi through business, through politics, through life, right?
Right, and so and also the fact that he is fundamentally not rational. And that's an incredible advantage to go into a fight. It's a kind of you will do anything beyond what other more reasonable people would do. And already, in the nature of this shutdown, he is now threatening immeasurable pain to Democrats and Democratic interests. So he will use the full force of the government to defeat the Democrats, to squeeze them, to bring them to their knees. And that's a different kind of that's different than typical shutdowns, which are it's essentially it's essentially you're looking out to your constituencies and saying, yeah, well, how much pain can you take? Can and eventually both sides sense that the American people are suffering for the level of services, government services, they're now being deprived of, and then the measure is that going to who is this going to hurt more? And then there's a negotiation and a settlement. So Trump is taking this beyond that and saying, I still have the power of the United States government here, and I can specifically direct that against the interests of the Democratic Party. So I will hurt you. I will use my power to hurt you. I mean, the New York Times had a story in which they called, yes, this shutdown is different because of Trump, because Trump is a wild card. Now, what that means is people are afraid of Trump, that he's managed to sell the fact that and he speaks in foreign policy. He speaks of this. He's of being nobody knows what a crazy man will do, and that is part posture and part true that he's a crazy man. So, do the Democrats have the mettle, the wherewithal to take the pain?
It's also, I mean, I still find it difficult to understand how a shutdown can help the party that's got all three arms of government. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people are now on furlough, all sorts of services denied to people. This feels so abjectly dysfunctional. I have a friend staying from Europe this week, and she cannot conceive of a government shutdown. I mean, this is not something that happens to well-functioning countries. And it's hard to see how this benefits Trump precisely because he has all the power. But then the other problem is, as you point out, is Chuck Schumer doesn't seem to be able to articulate why they're doing this, and other than healthcare. And as you suggested in our last podcast together, why on earth don't they just make it about Epstein?
Yeah, well, again, the Democrats are always defaulting to policy.
Yeah, a normal strategy.
For good reason. The logical thing would be to say, what is the nature of government? It's the policies that they enact. And the policies are what helps people or hurts people, and getting beyond that, which is to say, no, that's not really true. It's actually something much larger that that government should be about. That the government should be about the message. The government should be about the meaning of life. Of what it is to be an American at this point in time. I mean, all of that those existential considerations are beyond, almost by definition, beyond bureaucrats. That's not the job of a bureaucrat.
Right.
And I think that they're always in that position. I mean, I had dinner this summer with a governor of a swing state who appears to want to run for president, of a Democrat, very wholly reasonable, nice guy, who spoke at this was a small dinner with 8 or so people talking about and asking questions, and to every question he responded with a policy paragraph, and
Well, it's because,
And
isn't it because the theatre of politics has changed? We're now playing it out on social media. It was always played out on television where Trump is very skilled, but it's now playing it out on, as you say, Truth Social, of which there is an audience of one, but it gets amplified across every other social media platform. And policy paragraphs don't work on social media.
well, I don't think that they work in broadly in an emotional environment where people actually want other answers, other examples, other and other reasons to believe in this American enterprise. And Trump has managed. Yes, Trump is a performer, and Trump is also has managed to make dominance, who is stronger, the fundamental issue, who can take more pain. And Trump can take the pain. The fact that he went through this campaign with these indictments hanging over his head is still confounding to most civic institutions.
Yeah, most people would have got an ulcer or cancer over just the stress of it. All right, so Donald Trump is striding around the White House and inspecting the construction site on the 90,000 square foot ballroom that he's building, which will dwarf the actual White House itself. Another man who was talking about winning was Pete Hegseth, lecturing the generals on Tuesday.
And I think it's a constant a constant reasonable and obvious question: who is the most ridiculous person in the Trump cabinet? I mean, Kennedy, Hegseth, Bondi, Howard Lutnick, of all people.
Kristi Noem.
Tulsi Gabbard, never let us forget Kristi Noem. Yes.
Linda McMahon.
Linda McMahon. But clearly this week, the winner is Pete Hegseth for most ridiculous award. I mean, it just to see him in front of us, the idea of an alcoholic weekend television show
co-host, not even solo host,
becoming the Secretary of Defense is absurd. But then on top of that, to having this guy lecture a room full of 1 to 4 star generals about what makes a real fighting man, and as you say, in the midst of this, taking his slurp of coffee, is beyond beyond what would even be the word.
Parody. I mean,
credulity.
Right.
You can't even believe this is happening. How has this come to pass? And this whole audience of generals and admirals are that is what is on their face. How has this come to happen? And then I suppose, and what does this mean? I mean, these are the two big questions of the week.
I mean, there's so much to unpack in this speech. I mean, not least the silence of it. You know, that phrase, silence is deafening, which I'd never fully appreciated until watching them respond, there was no response. And it was as if they were afraid to respond, because I'm sure their terrified cameras are kind of looking for any kind of eye roll at all. But also the sheer criticism of them, that he was just laying into how the military had been run by previous presidents.
Well, just step back a second, because I mean, they find themselves are trapped in the middle of what is obviously a political event, with all the training of military training being that we do not engage in politics.
And here he was making a clearly very political speech.
The meaning of this speech was actually kind of humiliation. You've been all called on the carpet here. We are this alcoholic former weekend television co-host is the boss now.
mean, I think we should remind people too, let's not forget the extraordinary moment where it became clear that he had leaked classified details of a live military action on WhatsApp. I mean, it was Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, who actually technically did it, but there was Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, giving away literally live details of action. I mean, it was a strange, embarrassing moment. And there he is lecturing these generals.
Whenever you speak to anybody from who works at the Pentagon, I mean, it's a kind of oh my God response. I mean, the military has never seen anything like this. I truly believe, and it's really another aspect of this. I mean, it's the Trump aspect of this. Trump's inability to understand or appreciate an institutional culture. From Trump's point of view, the military, he calls it my military, and so it's like, okay, these people work for me. They're here to do what I want them to do, and they're here to be useful to me. This is so this is seen beyond duty to God and country. This is duty to Donald Trump, which is the only way he sees things. I mean, I actually believe that he has an cognitive inability to grasp this in a more to have a more generalized idea of greater purpose.
Well, what's interesting too, and we've written at the Daily Beast frequently about this, is that Pete Hegseth has become increasingly paranoid. He's paranoid about people leaking things. He's been firing people. He's now saying that he's going to do random, what is it called, truth or lie tests. When you put someone under a test to see whether or not they're lying, they're going to
You mean a
start doing
lie
this.
detector? A
Yeah,
lie
a lie
detector
detector.
is
A lie
what you're
detector. Yes,
you're
I'm
groping
still.
for.
I'm
Yes.
still feeling what they call breakthrough pain from my recent hip surgery. So I had a flash of it there as I was grasping for the idea of a lie detector test. But everything we're hearing out of the Pentagon is that Pete is feeling increasingly paranoid, that people are circling his job, and that the Pentagon have got it in for him.
I no doubt the Pentagon has it in for him, but that's also the way everybody around Donald Trump feels. I mean,
Right.
the knives are out for everyone. Everyone is paranoid about everyone else, and in the end, most paranoid about Donald Trump. Do I have his favor? Do I not have his favor? What is he thinking? All of these people are asking at any given moment what's in Trump's head.
Well, and clearly, as you're always saying, it's about an audience of one. It was an audience of one that he was talking to on Tuesday, despite the fact he'd gathered everybody there. So we have the huge American flag behind him, which is a reference to the General Patton movie that Trump likes so much.
There are many presidents who have liked that movie. That was a favorite of Nixon's too.
Okay.
And actually, it's a great movie. It's a riveting scene. When was the last time you saw this? I watch this movie frequently. It's a
Okay,
favorite. It's a
I have
favorite
to
of mine.
confess, I've never watched this movie, and I will. I was planning actually to watch it over the weekend, and I guess it's better that he had that up there than Fatal Attraction, which would be less of a. Although goodness knows, Pete Hegseth has had a very dramatic domestic life, necessitating a letter from his mother telling him that he was an abuser of women, which for a mother to write her son, I think was a devastating moment, one hopes, for him. So he's a man with a very complicated background who was accused, as we know, of sexual assault, which is why certain Joni Ernst US senators were apprehensive about him, but nevertheless he got through the Senate confirmation process with a deciding vote by J.D. Vance. I thought that this was a speech that, looking at some of the comments on YouTube, he was putting out there to be rousing, and this was his bid to be taken seriously as a potential presidential candidate. I think everybody around Trump knows that he's not well. and they see his cankles. They see the fact that he's not quite as robust as he was. They see the manic tweets at 2 a.m. on Truth Social, and they're beginning to position themselves. And J.D. Vance, obviously taking over Charlie Kirk's podcast, didn't have the same impact that I think Pete Hegseth addressing the military did.
It's hard to fully appreciate this because it's not a contiguous second term, but Trump is a second term president. Things things actually go wrong for almost everyone in a second term. They have not yet started to go wrong. Trump is and this is worth spending some time on. He has really bucked the trends so far of a second term presidency. At the same time, it is a second term presidency. It will come to an end. He is formally a lame duck. He cannot run again. So despite Steve Bannon delivering Bannon baloney about a third term, there's not going to be a third term, and somebody else is going to gradually or all at once emerge as the Republican standard bearer. So it's open season. Who's going to do this? Pete Hegseth, Bobby Kennedy. It's J.D. Vance. I mean, it's kind of, we can come back to the beginning of this show where we talked about the ridiculousness of the people around Trump. But one of these ridiculous people will probably emerge as the next ridiculous presidential candidate. And if history is any lesson, ridiculousness is a political plus.
Well, I did think there was some extraordinary moments in his speech, not least that he kept saying this is brought to you by the warrior ethos. And then he made a reference to his book. I wish I had been in the room, because when he made a reference to his book, which he sort of threw out there, his book about the warrior, normally in a room, especially if the room was supportive of you, there would be a sort of tittering of laughter and a lot of people would have read the book. I didn't get the sense that people understood the book was by him. It was in theory a self-deprecating joke, but in fact there was zero response, at least watching it as it was televised. And then his obsession about beards, about haircuts, we got lots of comments saying that this is racist, and this is very clearly aimed at Black people. A lot of people reached out and said, well, Sikhs are mighty warriors and they grow their hair. And then there was zero mention of the thing that I find the most depressing in terms of someone's appearance, which is tattoos. I mean, he is smothered in tattoos. In his little suits that are all too small for him. And he's got those strange arms that are so jacked that he can't put them flat against his sides. So they slightly bounce up as he walks around, and his pants were too small.
Let me return to tattoos, because one of my favorite stories, among the many favorite stories of the campaign, was a moment in which at a particular rally, Trump was approached by a young man with a tattoo on his face, on his forehead, and it was a young man who was a very Trumpy young man, and Trump took in the flattery and adulation, this man's insistence that he was the greatest Trump supporter at all time. But Trump was clearly trying not to focus on the tattoo, but then finally interrupted this young man and said, I'm just wondering, how much would it cost to get that tattoo removed?
Of course, because he's not going to hire someone with a facial tattoo. I mean, to be fair, I don't think most bosses will hire people with a facial tattoo. But Pete Hegseth is smothered in them, even as he crams himself into his little blue suit, which he's trying to make his visual identifier, I think. Anyway, I found it extraordinary and patronizing of, as you say, these 1 to 4 star generals who spent their life dedicated to this country, running incredibly complex maneuvers and machinery. I also thought that the way Pete Hegseth talked about warfare was sort of dating back to the Second World War. We know that current warfare is now cyber warfare, and it's largely drones. The idea that you're going to be ripping someone apart limb from limb, which is really what he was getting at, felt much more G.I. Joe than modern warfare of the 21st century.
Well, no, I think in one of the questions to come out of this is how do these guys react to this? What do they do? I mean, these guys, meaning the top brass of the United States military, and I'm not sure they know the answer to this. I suspect that they know that they're in a difficult and probably impossible position, and they're just holding their breath and saying, "This too shall pass." But I don't know, and I don't know if it will pass.
Well, and there was also the moment where he said, those of you who aren't on board for this, do the honourable thing, you should resign. I mean, I felt that there was a very threatening undercurrent coming from him.
No. The message is, again, this is Donald Trump's military,
Right.
my military, and you have to put everything else you have learned about God and country aside, and accept that this is the circumstances that you now work under. You work for your entire focus, your raison d'etre, is to carry out Donald Trump's wishes.
Yeah, I mean, undoubtedly. And also, I was trying to figure out, how do they talk about this with each other? How do you, I mean, you could almost see them sort of looking at their neighbors and wondering, you can't put anything, obviously, on social media. Nobody writes letters anymore. Do you call people? How do you talk about it?
I'm sure they don't know. This is, again, an impossible situation. So I think that they're just stuck holding their breath and again saying, "This too shall pass," which it may not.
Well, we're not going to pass, Michael. We're going to keep traipsing around Trump's head, finding odd crannies and nooks with strange surprises in them. So I will see you next Tuesday.
You will.
And who knows if we'll still be in a shutdown.
Will we be in the studio next Tuesday? I think we
I
will.
hope to make it into the studio, to hobble into the studio. And I tell you what I did want to do. I wanted to thank people for their comments, and there were various comments I wanted to read out, actually. I'm going to do some quick fires at you. Suzanne Daniel wanted to know, what is going into Trump's library? What will be in his library?
Rides and
Teacups, those
yes,
teacups and saucers that spin you round.
yeah.
This is a good question. Can Trump build a White House ballroom without congressional approval and planning? And could a future president demolish it? And could they bring back the Rose Garden, Jackie Kennedy's beloved Rose Garden that, of course, he's paved over and put Mar-a-Lago umbrellas on?
Well, apparently he can because he is. So
Is that because he's raising the money himself? I mean, he says he's paying for it himself, but in fact, companies have stepped forward to pay for it.
yes, but I assume and I mean traditionally presidents have had wide discretion over the White House. I think that there are some restraints and some funding issues, but again, as I say, apparently he can do this because he is, and yes, I think that somebody, a future president, could come back and restore the Rose Garden. I mean, I think the point of the ballroom is to make it so large that it would be impossible to undo, and just to make Richard Nixon pave filled in the swimming pool, and it has remained filled in.
Which is too bad, because Trump looks like he could do with a bit of exercise. He could have a couple of morning laps, actually.
Well, there's a site.
Oh, there's a site, Trump in a Speedo, you mean?
Yes.
All right. So here's a question. Do you think that Dr. Oz was Jeffrey Epstein's doctor? Might he be on the list?
He wasn't Jeffrey Epstein's doctor.
Okay, he wasn't Jeffrey Epstein's doctor. Okay,
But
well,
Jeffrey
that's
Epstein
Tim
had a
Lawson.
lot of doctors, and if you called him and asked them, he would always have a doctor he could send you to.
Okay, a doctor and a lawyer, I think. You once said he had 75 lawyers.
Yes, he did. 75 lawyers.
And thank you to all of those who commented that you hope I get well soon, particularly Robin. Joanna, please take care of your recovery. I am doing my best. I've got lots of ice packs going on. We'll come back to more comments. We got a lot of comments from listeners and viewers on Spotify, so we will come back to those on Tuesday. Michael, there's the shutdown, but we won't shut down. We will be back on Tuesday.
To see if the government has started up again.
Yeah, who knows? But I think what we do know is we can't quite predict what will have happened by then. We're living in an age of deep uncertainty.
Joanna, I will see you very soon.
Okay, Michael, go well. If you have been, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and please join the Daily Beast community on YouTube. Leave us a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the Daily Beast too, where we will keep you up to date with the moment-by-moment news of the shutdown and the crazy that's going on in DC. And if you can't get enough DC, sign up for our newsletter called The Swamp, which gives you even more delicious detail of the madness. A madness! Don't forget, as our First Lady would have us say, be beast. And thank you to our Be Beast tier of members, superior members. Karen White, Heidi Riley, Connie Rutherford, Sharon Shipley, Andrea Hodel, and Free DC. And thank you to our production team, Davin Rogerino, Anna von Urson, and our editor, Jesse Millward.